Welcome back to Unlocking Your Creative Curiosity with Tammy Collins, where we explore, experiment, evolve, express, and evoke our creativity. We're jumping into our creative exploration with a new experiment around leaves. Here's a little sneak peek at what's coming today in this video. Okay, we are getting started on another experiment with leaves. This is going to be the last one in this current series of the leaf or leaves experiment or exploration. As you can see, I'm just like really quick and loosely, non-specific, putting in some leaf shapes. I happen to have two leaves on my desk. One is a tulip tree leaf and the other one I don't happen to know. But it has some unbelievable pinky purple color on the green leaf, and that's what attracted me to it. So, funny story, I had already done this experiment once, and there was a tech issue, so the entire video was lost. So there's actually two experiments under this, but I redid it. Obviously, it's not exactly the same, but I used basically the same mediums and the same sort of techniques and methods that I did. So what I'm doing here is what you'll see me do a lot. This is a Tombow brush marker. It's a dual tip brush marker, and they're water-based markers. So I put some color on the paper and then I add some water and I get a watercolor-like effect out of them, which I love. It's fast and easy, and it really creates a beautiful look. The other thing I really like about it is when it dries, I can come back and you'll actually see that and really deepen and enrich and really create a much more unique look. So this will be our first layer in this experiment, and I typically will start with watercolors or a mottled color background. Sometimes I'll apply tissue paper. Really just depends on what my intuition wants to do in that moment. And I'm getting this sort of spread around. You could, of course, use acrylics. You could use watercolor. You could use a lot of different materials. The idea is that the basic concept here is that I'm just sort of blocking in the leaf shape. It's not even really that specific. This is a great exercise because there's no expectation around drawing a very realistic leaf. That's not really the objective here. I'm keeping it carefree and loose and a little bit abstract. And that's where the fun really comes in, and where you really start to see your just natural creativity take over. Because I've kind of thrown out the idea that I have to have a perfectly well-drawn leaf. So in case you're new here, if you were new here, you wouldn't know, but we do things perfectly imperfect around here. I don't do scripts for the audio. I don't really plan what it is I'm going to create. This is supposed to be a very sort of authentic look at my daily creative time. I've done this a few different times where I wanted to sort of bring my creative time to the public, and I really ran into a lot of hang-ups, and I discovered that it was because I was trying to record the audio at the same time that I was doing the creation, and those two things collide terribly. Trying to let my intuition, my natural creativity just take over, and when I'm trying to talk about it, I start overthinking everything and it becomes just a mishmash. So I tried this method, which I love. I keep it separate. I go ahead and do my creation, and then I come back and record the audio over top. I think it gives you, the viewer, a much better experience. So I'm just continuing on with the concept of getting the background sort of colored. I just sort of want a mottled greenish brown, fall colors sort of in the background. And as you can see, I'm just applying the markers just to get the color on the paper, and then I use the water to move the color around. And I keep edits to a minimum around here, but as you're going to see, I've discovered that I think there's a few ways to sort of do edits just to help your experience. So what's happening is when I have to dry the paper, because the one problem with recording in real time is that we have to wait for things to dry. So I stop the video, and that creates a transition, and I think it makes a nice flow. So right now I'm just coming back and sort of loosely outlining the shapes of the leaves that I created. And I'm going to add in a little bit of tiny veining and just a little bit of detail. Again, I'm using the Tombow, and I'm doing that on purpose because I'm going to be adding more color and more water, and it's going to sort of model those lines a little bit, which is going to give it a really nice natural leaf effect. Again, not specific. As you can see, I mean, I'm just dropping in these lines. It's almost like I'm not even thinking about them. Now this leaf is kind of a folded leaf, so that the lines would kind of go the other way, but okay, so now I'm going to come back in with the same colors, and I just want to sort of add another, I want to do it again, basically. So now I'm going to get a little bit of water and just sort of hit it all one more time. And I'm going to let sort of the water itself sort of create the look here. So you're really going to start to see this take shape, especially as the water starts to dry. And I let it get the veins and everything, and it just creates such a really cool look. It really makes it naturally look like a leaf. So I'm not really trying to be super perfect or specific here. Again, I'm keeping it very loose, free flowing. I'm letting the color and the water do the heavy lifting as far as the textural mottled color. You know, when you see fall leaves, they have so many different, you know, blotches and blobs and brown spots and just all these beautiful random shapes and colors. And so the water is kind of creating that same effect all by itself. So just by putting in some of the color, we're kind of getting that look automatically. There's a fine balance between too much water and not enough water. You need just enough water so that it sort of runs and blends the colors together. It does such a beautiful job of that. And see, you don't have to be so specific. I just sort of put that brown color on there, very random and loose and almost carefree, if you will. Okay, we got one more. I broke my rule of threes on here. I noticed I have 4 of each leaf on here. Guess I was going more for balance. Maybe symmetry. Let's see. Let's see what it looks like. So now I'm just debating if I need to do anything else. Do I need more water? Do I need more color? I think I'm going to leave it be. So now it had to dry, and we're back again with the dried second application of water. And I'm just trying to let it speak to me and tell me what it wants to do. I think I'm just going to start by getting loosened up by adding in some really light, loose lines to act as veining for the leaves. You know, again, I'm trying not to be super specific, but I just want to give the illusion of the veining. Maybe we'll do some feathers next. I don't know why I've been thinking about feathers. So what do you think about the watercolor effect with the brush Tombow markers and how that sort of creates the leaf medley of colors and just the whole realistic effect all by itself? Okay, so we have two layers, if you will. So it's sort of 2 dimensions of the background and then the leaves. So now I'm going to create another sort of background, another dimension. I'm using my non-dominant hand there to get in some squiggles. You know, I call these squiggles, they're doodling, they're literally intuitive lines that I'm just adding in. There's no thought about it at all. So now I'm going to go back and I'm just going to darken and remove the pointy edges, if you will. So the first thing I usually do is I take the thicker part of the brush marker and you can see right there, I just round everything off. I round it all off. I darken some lines. I get those shapes all settled in. To save a bunch of time with this, I put a lot of details in here, and so I did a little quick edit. I did a lot of the details, and when we come back, you'll see most of the detail, but I left a small section without them so you can see how I did those details, and I think that's really going to make a big difference in your enjoyment in watching the video, so you're not watching, you know, endless repetitive time of things taking place. Okay, so now that I've got all the shapes rounded, I'm just going to come back in and I'm going to color in that connection spot where the points used to be. And this almost turns everything into like I don't know, like, I don't even know what that shape would be. It's like a nebulous or some sort of shape. It's loose, it's carefree, it's sort of circular, but it feels like water bubbles that, you know, are flowing and changing shape. And you can see right away how that changes and really gives you a whole other depth and layer of interest. It gives your eye sort of a way to sort of flow around the piece. This is very therapeutic. It's very relaxing. It's actually quite addicting. Okay. So I think what I want to do now is add in a little bit more detail. So I'm going to come back in and break up some of these shapes and kind of repeat the same process. So see, I'm just rounding that. Those lines I added created sharp corners, and I'm just going to round those off. I like to thicken the lines in between. Now right there I'm just adding, I think it needs a little bit of grounding, so I'm adding in a little spot there. I'm not really trying to think about this. I'm just doing whatever I'm led to do. The thing that's so interesting about being creative is you could have 100 people do this same exact or follow this instruction and do basically the same thing. And I don't think any two things would look the same. There might be some similarities or some similar colors or techniques, but overall they're all going to look completely different, which is really, really a beautiful thing. Okay, so now we're going to go for a new layer. We're going to use the Posca markers, and we're going to add in a punch of color. And I'm going to use this Posca color, which is, what is this called? What does that say? Oh, aqua green. No, that can't be right. Let me see what, let me take a break the glasses out here for this one. This says, yeah, aqua green is the color. So I'm just going to outline a few of these shapes that were created by our random lines, just to give it some more interest and detail and color. I'm really combining sort of an abstract, intuitive doodling with, you know, a natural object that I'm doing an abstract variation of. We're using a couple different mediums, so it would put it into the mixed media category. I would like to have used some texture in this. I wasn't sure where or how. I was almost thinking about adding in some gilding paste to highlight those gold leaves, but thinking about what shapes do I want to, are calling me to put this color on there. And I'm switching up now. I'm going to use the white. Or no, I'm using the metallic first. So this is a metallic green. Okay, so now I'm going to use the white. And I end up doing the rest of these shapes in this white outline. Oh, chickens are having a chase. Sorry about that. It's real life around here. Perfectly imperfect. Chickens are very entertaining. I just love the way these markers really just make everything pop. It really gives a high impact contrast. It really helps to suck you into the piece. It really adds depth and dimension. I'm going to be getting a new studio, so I'm so excited about that. Right now I'm in a tiny house and I work on a very, very tiny little table here. What you see in the camera zone is basically the table. There's not a whole lot of room around that, maybe 3 inches around on each side. So it can be a real challenge. But again, I didn't let that stop me from doing what I wanted to do, which is a big message that took me a long time to really learn and embrace, and stop worrying so much about things being perfect or what people were going to think. And, you know, it took me a really long time to get over all that stuff, and it really hindered my creativity and kept me stagnant for a long time. And I'm just not doing that anymore. And so here we are. I think this is like the 7th video that I've published. So I'm doing it. I hope you enjoy them. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Talk to me in the comments. Tell me what you think. Do you want to see something? What do you like? Do you like the quiet time? Do you think I should put music in the backdrop? Okay, so I didn't record the enormous amount of detail that went in there. It just takes a lot of time. It's very, you know, kind of boring to watch. So what I'm showing you here is that I outlined the colors of the Posca markers that I did, and then I'm going back with my sort of, you know, cobblestone shapes, if you will. And I put the cobblestone shapes in the spaces that I outlined in white. And then you'll see I come back and I put some dots in there. And then the green, the shapes that I outlined in green, I put white dots. And then I put black dots on the white dots. And then I outlined those with the gel pen. So see, I'm just putting the dots in there. As you can imagine, that would have taken a long time in the film. So you can see how I did it. You just didn't have to watch me do all of them. And I'm just adding some other dots and details to some lines that I put there. That's something new. I haven't done that before. Adding almost like stitches, what appears to be like stitching. And then I feel like it just needs another layer. I feel like it needs a little bit more interest. So I'm going to add in some highlights, which I discovered here that I think my white pen is about kapooey. So I think I got to get another pen here. And we're just going to add some highlights onto the leaves and put a shadow in behind the leaves just to give it a little pop. Just a little tiny bit. I don't want the leaves to feel like they're super flat, so adding the highlight and the shadow helps to give them a little bit of you know, bend, or life is really a better term. But this is the last in this series of the leaves experiment in the color exploration series. And I don't know, I just had a thought about feathers. I don't know, will that be next? We'll see. I don't know. So I'm realizing here at this point that I feel like it just needs a little bit more. I'm unsure. I'm thinking about it. I'm just sort of letting it sink in. But I'm going to come back in and add in some of what I call the electricity lines. Just very loose, you know, random lines that I first put in with the Tombow. Right here, I'm just adding in a little bit of green. I just want to enhance areas that would be a little bit more, need more shadow. Just a tiny bit. So I'm just adding in some of the little bit more shading. I want to just give it a little bit more depth. It's just not quite right. And I realized I missed this leaf here. Wanted to show you this detail. So I just took the gel pen and added in a little bit more veining effect, which really brings it to life. I had already done this on all the other leaves, but that particular one I left. And so you could see how that was done. Here comes the wild electric lines, and you can see I'm like really random. I don't want to go over the leaves because I want the leaves to be the surface element, so I'm just giving another, this really helps to separate and give it almost another depth layer. I think it really helps to suck you in. So I like the way that looks, but I want to darken it, so I'm getting the Posca marker and I'm going to follow that and just round off my corners. I don't know, there's a lot of activity outside. Might have to forgive my audio today. I don't want to record it 10 times. We might have some dog barking and some chicken chaos. And this is what happens when you live out in the wilderness. Okay, just darkening up the electric lines, and you know, that's what I call them. They're just free form doodles. That's all they are. I round off the corners. I'm just darkening them up. I think getting them a little darker is important. Because they're over top of that other layer, it really helps to push that layer back, and it enhances the depth feature of the piece. But I hope you're enjoying this series. This will be the last of the leaves experiment, and we're going to move on to something next. For the next series, I want to do a series on mark making, where we just look at making marks and that process and recording it. Right now I'm just taking the Posca and framing out the edge with a little black line. And then we're going to pull the tape. But yeah, I want to be doing, we're going to get into a journal just strictly for mark making. We're going to get into a journal just strictly for color theory and color combinations. We're going to get into an inspirational journal. But stick around, like, subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's experiment with creativity. For more, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow me for more inspiration.